Tony Britt Spotter Charts serves sports media exclusively with customized cheat sheets for both prep and game time. Serving over 350 clients at all major networks, 23 NFL teams, and 68 college football programs, including Division II, Division III, and NAIA schools. Variable pricing ensures that small schools receive the same VIP service as ABC, CBS, ESPN, Fox, NBC, and the NFL Network.
What's going on, Chuckleheads? Welcome back to Voices in the Stands. I am Carlo Guadagnino, the Go Talk, and the host of these Misfits this week. We have a bunch of them. I'm not going to make them all state their names right off the bat, but you know how we do this. We're going to talk about some things in the Empire 8. We're going to talk about some WIAC. We're going to talk about the East Coast, PAC, ODAX. The spread option crew is here. But before we get into all of that, Matt, if you want to hit your shuffle, I want to talk to the two guys that are the voice of two respective colleges, the college programs that we cover. You know, Josh being the voice of the Warhawks, Matt being the voice of the Augies. What goes into I guess let's start with the prep. What goes into how long are you prepping for a Saturday game?
Dude, Tony Britt Spotter Charts. Tony Britt Spotter Charts, man. I'm going to throw that out. That saves me probably 8 hours a week. Outside of that, it's not a ton of prep, I would say. It's probably 4 to 6 hours in addition to that. Just looking up unique stats and kind of where folks fall and game highs and, just trying to find some nuggets, on the other team. But, for the most part, I would say, having Tony Britt has been awesome just from a purely statistical grab, in a two deep. And then just trying to familiarize myself with a few guys that are maybe not on their two deep. But otherwise I would say, 4 to 6 hours typically to prep for a game.
Josh?
Yeah, again, shout Tony Britt Spotter Charts. My buddy Corey, who I used to work with here in Southern Wisconsin, is now the voice of Tulane Athletics and for the men's side, and he does football for the Green Wave. And he turned me on to that, and I reached out to Tony and I say, "Hey, man, do you guys do any Division III football? Can you possibly do that?" And he said, "Yeah." And I'm lucky that my place of business, my company, is willing to invest that money, and so is the university to help with that, because in addition to doing high school games in the fall every week that we do, we get the two deeps. They pass it along to Tony Britt. They give us a chart by probably Tuesday, Wednesday at the latest. So I'm going over that. I'm looking back at the games. I'm looking at the statistics. I'm trying to see what the two deeps aren't telling you, because I think Matt will agree also one of the big challenges is injury news, right? We don't get injury reports like Division I does. So you got to depend on your coach and the SID to pass along that news. We do a campus visit every Wednesday, and we're lucky that it's 15 minutes away from where I live here. So me and my color analyst, we go over there. We interview a player for our halftime show that usually lasts about 14, 15 minutes. And it's a pick by the coach, and it's very, very well received. It's usually a senior. Sometimes it's a guy who hasn't had much time on the field. But like this week, we talked to a quarterback who was in the running for the starting job, had been on the team for a few years, and he blew out his ACL in camp. And now he's not playing. So it's kind of a hard luck case, but you go in thinking like, oh, okay, what could we possibly talk to him about? But the story is fantastic. That's the kind of stuff we get at D3, is both, as everybody here knows, the stories about these athletes that pour their time and their heart and their soul and their blood into this. That's all it's about, right? And then we go up and talk to the coach. We shoot the breeze for half an hour before we start rolling, and then we do our pregame interview. And then it's when we get to the stadium. I don't know what Matt does. We get there an hour and a half before our pregame show. We clock in, we do the equipment, we get everything set up, we talk to who we need to, start going over we have a nice preview up at uwwsports.com every week. You start going through that. Here's what we want to mention during our 60-minute pregame show, and we got a lot of different segments to fill. So I'm going through the rundown of that. So it's pretty immense. I want to give the D3 program a D1 like level commitment, whether it's the show, whether it's an interview, whether it's the stats, whether it's the call. I want to bring it as top shelf as we can, man. I mean, none of us are getting rich off this, least of all the coaches or the players. Definitely not the broadcasters. So I want to make it as good as humanly possible.
Now, I got to ask you, and we talked a little bit about it before we started recording. What's it like coming down off of a workday? Especially with both of you, it seems to be that you guys get there a little early. There's a pregame, there's the during the game coverage, there's the post game coverage. What's the come down like? How long does it take you to, if it's a good game, come down off the high? If it's a bad game, come out of the funk of a loss?
Matt?
Yeah. So, I mean, depends on how bad of a loss or how big of a win sometimes, right? I mean, same thing, with Josh. I mean, I'm there 4 hours before kickoff. I'm there when tailgate opens. I try to be one of the first, 20 cars, into the tailgate scene. Because again, I like to walk around. So my day is really long because then I go up to the box and I start again, continuing to dive. I start watching some other games and start just trying to get into my headspace. But then coming down off of it, it depends a little bit. Is it senior day? Is it homecoming? Who's all around there? What was the performance like? And even walking around a tailgate scene, it's like it's tough to want to go and kind of be a part of other people's tailgates, right? That's not your family. Yes, they're friends, but man, if there's a loss, nobody wants to come up and be like, hey, how you doing? Hey, how's it going? And trying to catch up when it's like, man, we just got our ass beat. Now, when we're on a high, hell, it's beers around, it's all kinds of stuff is going on, right? So you got to kind of read the room here a little bit too, is kind of the way I like to think about it. But I'm fortunate enough where, I can go and I'm really close with a lot of parents and, so I'll go visit some of them and say hi. And, sometimes I'll be there for 30 minutes. Sometimes I'm helping them close it down. Just depends on, what goes down. So,
Yeah, it's like he said, it depends on it's a win or a loss, what kind of game it is. Like this one took a long time for Whitewater and Platteville, and I know we'll get into it, but I mean it's the George Chris Bowl, right? You're out afterwards. The teams are lining up. They're awarding the offensive and defensive players of the game. It's the award of the trophy, and you have to stand out there whether you win or lose. And it's awful if you lose, but just the strength of the opponent that you have, whether you go in not knowing whether you're going to pull this one out and how the game unfolds. Like it took me probably till I got home when it really set in. But I will say that I'm having a win hangover, right? And that has nothing to do with beverages afterwards. Like I'm still exhausted from yesterday, just because there's so much riding on this, right, in this conference and all these games, and it's going to be another huge one. You got to get up for it again this Saturday. You don't have any time to think about it. You can celebrate for 24 hours, rest, recovery, get back into it. Like you don't have any time for this, but I will tell you it's exhausting. 2-3 years ago, I think it was our first year, River Falls came for homecoming to Perkins, and we won on a last second kick that doinked off the crossbar and went over, and that's how we won. And I am not shitting you. I thought I was having a heart attack during my call. Like I got lightheaded, I got all warm, like I thought, like the room was spinning. Like this, this is awesome. It's great. I mean, not the prospect of having a heart attack during a game broadcast, but I mean, just like, but like the Platteville, then you go out and the scene is what it is. And, you get pulled in by these parents and they say, great job. Can't wait to hear the podcast on Monday, and great halftime interview. And, we listened last week, like Blake Haggerty, who got the offense player of the game, and parents were in there. And that was pretty freaking sweet. His grandma did a shot of Fireball with the rest of the parents prior to going into the stadium. I mean, it's like you hear these stories when you get out to the parking lot of all these parents and grandparents, some of them that want to come over and talk about the game and show their appreciation. It's like, it's very humiliating, and not humiliating, it's very humbling, because all you do is show up and you talk about football, right? Like, you're just doing your job, but the level of appreciation shows you what some of these other programs don't have, and the fact that we do. People absolutely love that and do not let that fall by the wayside.
Yeah, and I'll add to that. I mean, what Josh just said, because I try to interview 1 to 2 Vikings players throughout the week, and then release the podcast usually Thursday or Friday before the game. So it's usually getting a chance to connect with the parents and that family, and they've watched it and they've listened to it. So again, you talk about the appreciation and some of the things that they just love and enjoy. I started with the idea. I didn't know if anybody, would be interested in one, talking to me, or two, even listening to what the hell I had to say. In 57 episodes last year, and we're already at 12 this year. It's like, it's been awesome. So yes, same thing with Josh is talking about, but I will tell you the biggest high it was hard for me to come off of was our Wash U win 2 years ago in St. Louis. That was a freaking one-man party in my car all the way home from St. Louis. So
now, my last question is, what's it like for a broadcaster to go on the road? How do you one, make the decision or get a feel for, is it when you get to the stadium, you have to feel it out? Is it going there a day earlier? Is it knowing it from past years? What is the setup and whatnot like when you go on the road away from the park or from Augieville?
Well, here, mine's really easy. I don't go on the road. I'm a homebody. So everything away, the team takes care of it. So Augie doesn't pay me as well. So yeah, at the end of the day, it's all through the CCIW network. So I'm volunteering, my time. So I'm just a homebody. So I don't travel. If I do, it's a fan.
So we were lucky enough to strike a deal with the athletic department at Whitewater to cover our travel costs. So if we need a hotel, they get us a hotel. If we need a flight, we need a flight. Like, we've been to Berry College down in Rome. We've been to John Carroll in Cleveland. We flew down to both of those places. We've been down to Texas twice. We had to drive up to St. John's. Like, you don't really know. You depend on the SID for those schools to tell you exactly what the conditions are like, where you're going to go, whether you have an Ethernet plug-in, and then you basically just get there and take it all in, for about 5-10 seconds, and you kind of get a vision in your head of, all right, here's what we got to do. Like, it's easier now being in the WIC with, going to these schools for the second time in our 4 years. That's what we're doing. But on the road for these non-cons and even the playoffs, like, all the love to Wartburg and Waverly for hosting us. We had a great time out downtown at a pizza place a couple of years ago when we were in the final 8 teams. But that press box is probably not any bigger than the table and the chairs that I'm sitting at right now. And for a booth for 3 people for a top 10 or 15 program perennially that just built a brand new indoor gym and indoor track and weight room and volleyball and everything else, it's like, guys, this is your bread and butter, this football team. Some of these places that just don't have adequate facilities for visiting radio teams, I just don't understand it. And especially the place like at St. Xavier, where the SID was very apologetic because he can't do anything. He's at the mercy of how much money they'll give him. But, when you look up how much money that place is pulling in, and you're like, really? This? And you see the billboard and the marquee walking in with how many championships and how many playoff appearances, whatever. And you're like, really? This is it? It's amazing how much quality football programs these places have, and yet don't have adequate facilities for people that want to come travel and do these games. It's just mind-boggling.
Right. All right. Tony, I don't want to leave you out in the cold. I know we were supposed to start. That was kind of a
sorry.
Josh and me and Matt had talked. No, we had talked. Don't apologize. That's that's another aspect of this D3 community that a lot of people probably don't understand is you either have the student-run broadcast or you have people like Matt and Josh that give their time to go and cover these games. That being said, Tony, what the heck's going on in New York? I know Utica did what Utica had to do, and Ithaca did not do what it had to do, and Cortland gave up a 9-minute drive, gave up no points, and then ended up really mollywopping the heck out of St. John Fisher throughout most of the rest of that game. But what was going on up there in the Empire 8 and the Liberty League?
Yeah, well, listen, I am not the official voice of the Utica University Pioneers. At this point, I don't even know if I'm allowed on campus unless I'm with Moose Hogan. But let's talk a little bit about Utica. Utica, listen, at the end of the day, the game was 51-28. This was 37 at the half against Alfred. Really looked like they did really whatever they really wanted to do. No disrespect to Alfred. But, after halftime, and listen, there was a lot of great things. The Utica secondary, they did not allow anything. Nothing was happening in the air at all in the Utica secondary. That D line, that offensive line, and even the linebackers. Shout out to Mason Mascari, who actually had a scoop and score for Utica's first points of the game. His first touchdown. Great kid, great family. Shout out to him. So Utica looked like they were cooking, and then listen, after halftime a little bit, it got a little sloppy for my liking. They did score a little bit more than I would have appreciated, but I think Utica kept pace, and that's kind of how it went. Overall stats of the game were pretty good. Utica came in at 505 yards total offense versus Alfred's 201. Utica had 361 in the air and 144 rushing compared to only 55 in the air for Alfred and about 146 rushing. The penalties for Utica, again, they kind of reared their ugly head. They all came at the worst time. 12 penalties for 142 yards, and again, a big reason why Alfred was able to get kind of points on the board. But the time of possession was squarely in Utica's favor, 35, almost 36 minutes compared to Alfred's 24. So really, all in all, not bad. I'm being a little bit hard on Utica because I really wanted them to kind of flex a little bit. They did somewhat. I would have preferred a little bit more. But going around the rest of the EA, Cortland does what Cortland does. 31-7 over St. John's Fisher. Cortland started a little sluggish in the beginning. And like I've been saying, and we even talked about it at kind of when we were pre-recording, with Cortland, it's almost like you have to go to a 2-minute offense the first possession you get and try to get on them early. And St. John's Fisher, started driving, came up, they drove and then came up empty for all that effort with no points. And that was I ultimately think that was a big reason why the death blow happened. They scored some points and then, Cortland does what Cortland does. They're really good at in-game adjustments. They're really good at coming out in the second half and adjusting. And if you're not on top of them by that and you can withhold that storm, you're gonna be in problems. Brockport, they kind of did to Morrisville what I really preferred Utica would have done to Morrisville. 61-3, left a no doubter and basically did whatever the heck they wanted to. Alfred State, 54-28 against Hartwick. And again, Hartwick is scoring points this year. They really are kind of coming in, and they're not just getting pushed around anymore. They're scoring points. So you let them, Hartwick is one of those teams that, although they're trying to kind of make their way from the bottom there a little bit, they're hungry. They have some young coaches. And I honestly think in the years to come, Hartwick is going to turn the ship around. That's just my kind of hot take on it as far as the E8. But now, Utica has to go, and we're at home next week. St. John's Fisher comes in. How does Coach Raby respond? Raby, I'm sorry if I mispronounced it. How does he respond? He's going to come in hot. This is a coach that knows us well, and we know him well. He's going to come in hot. He's going to try to make a statement, and it's up to Utica to kind of start off hot and play our brand of football and stop vibing off the other team. That's the only way we can play it, and it's 1-0. That's the only approach we could do. So that's kind of where we are with the Empire 8. And like I said, I'm really looking forward to kind of this final stretch. It's really going to be interesting. But Cortland's in the driver's seat here in the E8. It's their conference to lose at this point, and somebody has to kind of come and give them another loss.
Right, right. So my question for you is not Empire 8 related, but that Ithaca Union game. Did you see Ithaca drop in that game this week? I don't think anybody
I
had
didn't.
that circled.
I I did not. And listen, shout out. Listen, you got to tip your cap to Union. Union did what really I didn't see it happening. I really thought that was going to be a rocking chair game for Ithaca. I really did. And they went in there and they did what they had to do. What does that say about Ithaca? I don't know. Are they having a down year? Hard to say. You know what I mean? Hard to say. We'll see. We'll see when they face Cortland. That's always a big game, no matter what. But Union did what they had to do. Is Union back? I'd pump the brakes a little bit. I'd pump the brakes a little bit on his Union and his Union backs and all the Union fans out there. I said it. Please send guys can send me all the hate mail all you want, but I said it. I'm not sure they're exactly back yet.
Leading into our next segment, I normally cover the PAC, the Centennial, the NJAC, and the ODAC. Josh is wearing purple. I know Crew's not going to like what I have to say. And David, it's not an insult to North Central for what I'm leading into. They've had a very good run in the CCIW from 2019, right? Their last loss was to Wheaton in CCIW play, and they haven't lost since then. But there's a team, and we like to call ourselves the voices in the stands, but we're missing a team. And Josh is wearing the right color. It's just not the right team. We've forgotten about Mount Union, and that's on me. I'm supposed to be covering the East Coast and the eastern areas of football. And, Mount is what Mount is. There's no anybody that doesn't know about D3 football, who Mount Union is. And I had Dylan look into some things before he gave me my PAC and the rest of the rundowns. The last loss that Mount Union had in the OAC is John Carroll in 2016. They're no longer in the OAC. So from 2005 to today, Mount Union is 165-1 in conference play. And since 1997, they're 236-2. The other team that beat them in that 236-2 span was Ohio Northern. That did not happen this weekend, as Mount Union did what Mount Union does, 33-7 over Ohio Northern. And I was asked by a couple people, it doesn't seem like Mount Union's really taking it to teams this year. Is it a down year? Are they a true number two? Yes, they are 100% the second best team in the country. It's going to be very hard for any team to play against North Central or Mount Union. I really don't care on the road with the MPI. North Central has to travel or Mount has to travel or whoever. Those two teams, until somebody proves otherwise, are the two best teams in the country. And that's where I stand on that. Josh, I'd like to get your opinion. I know the Warhawks have had some battles with the Purple Raiders. I know the North Central people. I know Crew is very, very serious on his stance on the Purple Raiders. I think that you guys with the purple, I think you guys all have a little bit of a thing going on. But what do you got for me, Josh?
Well, it's like when you play anybody, you hear anybody that's really any good, and you see their record, and you see them playing teams and either blowing them out or healthy victories, not one-score games. And I think that's probably going to be the theme this week for Whitewater and River Falls, right? They haven't played us yet, So I think we would definitely take on that challenge if that's what it comes to, because I think our defense – I think can match up with anybody. I know our friends just south of us in Naperville would probably take exception to that, but that's fine. I wouldn't mind that challenge whatsoever. But if that's what it comes to on that side of the bracket, if we're able to get to the playoffs and get that far, that's what it is. You're not Ric Flair, man. Be the best. You got to beat the best. That's fine. I don't have a problem with that. That's not a big deal whatsoever. It is who you play. If you got to win the championship, you got to beat the best teams. Period. End of story. And like Coach Rindle says over in Whitewater, iron sharpens iron, right? So that's how you got to do. You welcome the challenge, and hopefully you got enough in the tank to beat them.
Did anybody out there have on their bingo card that we would get a Moose Hogan and a Ric Flair point to? Also, Josh, I'm not going to let you slide. I think you tried to the Pittsburgh Steelers earlier today with your Dusty Rhodes and his polka dots on Twitter. And just know, man, don't try to put hard times on the Steelers. Don't you do it. Don't you try to put hard times on them.
Those are so ugly,
listen,
man.
We do that.
What are we doing?
Have you ever seen any of our other alternate jerseys? None of them are good.
And honestly, people like the Acme Packing Company old school stuff for the Packers, and we'll see. The game starts as we're recording right now in about 20 minutes, and I got a Pittsburgh Steeler defensive lineman that's 5 houses down from me in my neighborhood. So shout out Keanu Benton right up front. He's my neighbor. Went to my high school, Wisconsin Badgers. I got his jersey hanging up in my closet. So I wish him the best of luck all the rest of the year except one time, and that's right now when they play the Packers tonight.
Understood. Let me get through the rest of my coverage, and then we will jump into you giving us the breakdown on what's going to happen up there in River Falls. The PAC, Case, W&J, and Geneva did exactly what they have done so far throughout the season, and that's the womp on the teams that are a little bit down this year. Bethany, Teal, and Waynesburg. Case Western got out 55-7 on Teal. W&J got out 55-0 on Waynesburg. And my stat of the week, shout out to the Around the Nation podcast. I don't know if they'll use this, but my stat of the week is Geneva scored the second most points this week behind the 76-point output from those bullies from Naperville. Then you go to the game that was a lot closer than I think a lot of people expected it to be. Grove City and Westminster, 14-7. Grove City gets the win there. Then the game of the week, I think, Muhlenberg once again coming back from down 16 in the fourth quarter against Carnegie Mellon. This is the second time in a couple weeks that we have seen Carnegie Mellon give up a double-digit lead in the fourth quarter. I would assume they're probably out, although they're probably the best 3-loss team in the country right now. The rest of it was Johns Hopkins 59-21 over Gettysburg. Franklin and Marshall dominated Ursinus 52-20, and Dickinson beat McDaniel 23-20. In the end, Jack, it was Salisbury and Rowan really surprised a lot of people, except for them guys from the D3 spread, which kind of said that Rowan was going to cover the points. They did. They made that game a lot closer than I think a lot of people had. I think a lot of people are now looking at it and saying maybe Crew was onto something with is Salisbury a little overrated in the 4, 5, 6 spot. I think I have them this week at 11. I have Christopher Newport at 13. I think a good spot for the winner of that game is probably going to be 11. That game will decide who goes to the playoffs from the end, Jack. And then in the ODAC, it was Shenandoah getting the victory. Randolph-Macon got a win. Hampton-Sydney got a win. And Washington and Lee in overtime got a win over Bridgewater. Now, all of that to say, what's going on in the WIAC? I know this wasn't an easy one for you on the heart. Give us a recap of this past week and talk to us about what's coming up this week.
Well, first of all, Platteville's a really, really good team. And Whitewater, I thought, was in control for the majority. And then the third quarter hit. And when we talked to Coach Rindle on Wednesday last week, he said this is a very good halftime adjusting team. They will look at everything you've done. They will know what you're doing, and then they'll be able to know how to beat it. And I thought they did that in the third quarter. And I thought for sure we were cooked because our third quarter was not very good. It resulted, I think we ran a total of, 11 plays. And one of them, I think there were 2 punts. And then one of them resulted, or actually, it was one interception, one punt, and then we punted again. And again, just like lacrosse, just like last week against Stout, you had a snap go bad. This one, luckily, was a rocket right over the punter's head and went out of the back of the end zone for a safety. But then you got to give them the ball. They take the lead. And it's like, all right, we're getting, again, some PTSD. But we got some injuries in that category, in that position group. So there was a little shuffling around, had different guys handling kicks, punts, field goals, extra points, stuff like that. But I thought the resolve that Whitewater showed was absolutely tremendous. Quarterback play for the most part was good, but 3 picks. One of them probably could have been substituted for a punt, but you stayed after it. But again, it's our defense, man. Our defense is really. I think they had some little issues with Zach Bothan, their main running back, was out. But the freshman who ran for over 100 yards last week, I thought he was pretty good. I think he had 15 carries for over 50 yards, something like that. Selding didn't run as much as I expected him to, and I think they have also some injuries because they were going, on our spotter chart, we had about 9 deep in the wide receiver group, and they had 2 guys catching passes that weren't even on there, maybe even 3. So they were going really deep. I don't know if that's because of elevation of them. They had good weeks at practice. And just general attrition by some of the other guys, or that they didn't have guys available, right? But, they got a pair of big 6'3" dudes that are really, really good at catching the football, getting open, and making plays. But our defense made more plays. And I think we lean on our defense as our offense can just keep pounding you, right? The mantra is pound the rock. And if, the quarterback who's really adept at running the ball, following the pulling tight end, and those pulling offensive linemen, Platteville did a good job chasing us down from the ends of the line of scrimmage and limiting a lot of those carries. But, now the challenge comes River Falls. And I don't know, maybe Mikey can kind of speak on this a little bit later. I would love to know, given what Oshkosh has done since that first WIAC game, I want to know how the Titans beat River Falls. I really do. And Mikey and I were texting a little bit on Saturday night about Caleb Blaha. I know he went out, but again, we're going to have to lean on, that's the top offense in the WIAC. We're the top defense in the WIAC. This is going to be, again, a battle, the D3Football.com poll, number 8 against number 9, just like we were this last week against Platteville, only we're going to be number 8, not number 9. So it's going to be huge. And, I've been doing some looking. I think Mikey can attest to this too. There are only a couple of good, really questionable games left in the last 3 weeks of the conference. It's going to be this one with Whitewater and River Falls, Oshkosh at Platteville, and then the next couple of weeks, lacrosse at River Falls, and then Whitewater at Oshkosh. And that's kind of going to bust up that 4-team tie that's at the top right now. So this is going to be the biggest game of the year, just like Platteville was the biggest game of the year. And this is going to be a real tough one for Whitewater. Right? But I think, you're able to win this one. And I think that definitely the conference is in sight.
Well, and that goes to what Mikey said last week and what he said in the spread option, which was somebody in this damn league is going to have to get on a bus, go to a different team's building, and win a football game. And thus far, we haven't seen it. So
I think it's happened twice.
I don't know. Oh, has it now?
I think it's been 2.
I'm saying for the once.
Just lacrosse.
Once.
It's home teams between the top 6 are now 7-1.
Top 6, yes. Sorry, I was going whole conference. All right.
Yep, just top 6. I'm talking this 7-1. So just lacrosse. So lacrosse actually, it's still technically their conference to lose if you want to put it that way. Where they're first place, they have the same record as Whitewater, and they beat them. So someone else has to win a road game. Carlo's exactly right.
Yep.
Now, before we get into Mikey and crew, I want to just let Mikey sit there and stew in his own brain now that we got him starting. But, Matt, I believe you did an interview this week, and before we get into CCIW play, I think we have a CCIW administrator to talk to this week. So, Matt, lead us in.
Yeah, so I had the chance to sit down with Associate Executive Director Bryan Moore. He was really kind of the brains behind the CCIW's move to HudlTV and the CCIW Network. So I've got about a 7.5 clip here of it, but I'll release it separately, in its entirety to take a look at it. But again, as we think about, a lot of these, whether it's conferences or teams going to potential paywalls, I reached out to him and he was gracious enough to sit down and shed some light on the CCIW. So I will cue that up here for us and come back.
Yeah, we knew. I mean, obviously, you take a look around and you see these conference networks popping up all around Division III for the last couple of years. We knew we wanted to do one, and we knew that we would have options on how we would want to do it. And it was pretty apparent, not only to the conference office, but speaking with the administrators on our campuses, from athletics communication staffs to athletics directors, all the way up to the presidential level, there really wasn't any appetite for pay-per-view. We kind of started with the athletics communication staffs a little over a year ago. I think it was our pre-year meeting in August of 24, and the immediate response was, we don't want to go down the pay-per-view route. So we knew, some of our peer conferences in the Midwest had gone with Huddle. So we made some phone calls to some other league offices to just kind of see how their process went. And it became clear to us that Huddle would probably be the way to go. All of our core members, all 9, have good partnerships with Huddle already. So it was just kind of a natural fit, and they were obviously thrilled to work with us. And it was a long process to make sure we got everything lined up the way that we wanted it to look, and a lot of education from top to bottom. But, it was really our only want from the get-go is to go with what we have now.
Now, when you first brought that idea to the table, in a year ago, you were starting to get kind of initial buy-in from each school. When you approached them, was there already a sense of they had kind of a foot in the door, or did you really have to kind of formally form a plan and present it to the core schools? Like, kind of where were they at just in their thought journey?
We saw what the WIAC had done. We saw what the Minnesota conferences had done. Both Minnesota conferences had set up with Huddle, and we really went to Huddle and said, this is what we want. We obviously don't want it to look identical. We want our own branding, our own color scheme, all those things, but this is what we want. So when we went to our athletics communication staffs, that's kind of was the model that we used is, we know that you visit these networks frequently when we're playing non-conference opponents. This is what we're trying to emulate. This is what we're trying to mimic. Again, obviously it will not look exactly the same, but this is the model we're going to follow. We also have kind of left a lot of freedom on CCIW campuses to still do things the way that they have always done. We've not really implemented a lot of branding standards for year one. Mm-hmm. I do think in long term, we'd like to get to that point where maybe we have a more consistent score bug. Maybe everybody has a minimum number of cameras that they use for a sport. Maybe everybody has replay that they can queue up. We're not there yet. But, getting everything in one central location is step one. And I think it was easy for those athletics communication staffs to buy in because it was going to be a gradual buildup. And we basically said, keep doing what you're doing. Just make sure you send it to our network and we'll go from there.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, when you were talking to the schools, you were talking just a little bit about like the school's alignment or even the conference's alignment around like accessibility, fan engagement. How did like the conference's goals in Huddle kind of line up to that?
Huddle, I can't say enough good things about Huddle. Just their ability, they built the whole thing for us. Obviously we're not, I'm not a tech expert by any means. So they've been a good partner. And, they obviously, they want us to be a part of their ecosystem. And again, because of the 9 CCIW core members partnership with Huddle, it was a natural fit from the get-go. We didn't have to really go to our membership and say, you've got to invest X amount of dollars to make this work. Huddle and the CCIW, long before the CCIW network, have been great partners. And I do think that there's a level of trust, between the two entities. It's obviously a huge tool for our coaches in terms of, you have that focus camera that automatically captures practices, automatically cuts game film. So I think it was a natural fit from the get-go. Again, we didn't really talk to anybody else. And, I think from an administrative perspective, our ADs already know what Huddle is. They know, what Huddle's capable of in terms of being a resource for our institutions. And when we were able to say to these people, what you see from these other leagues is what we'll be doing. It was never really a painful process. Obviously, we had to plan. We had to make sure that, the paperwork was done and we knew what we were signing on to. But we've not heard anything negative, and I don't think any of the other Division III conferences can say the same. I know that some of the structures and formats may be changing moving forward, but when I talked to BJ at the Minnesota Intercollegiate Athletic Conference about a year ago, he just said, "This is great." It's taken us some time to get it started, but there's no complaints. Everybody really likes it. It's easy. And it's, I don't want to jinx the CCIW or anybody else, but it really has been nice to get it off the ground. And like I said, to have all of our events in one place, and hopefully it makes it easier, for our fans, for our alums, for our parents to find what they're looking for. But the other thing I will say, especially for Division III, live streaming has come a long way. This is my 17th year in Division III. Whether it be at a conference office or on campus. And when I started, it was not uncommon for your game to just not be available, whether it be, technology challenges or where you were playing. And it's been awesome for us. And the app is just another piece of that puzzle. But to answer your question, I've not really heard specific feedback on app versus desktop. CCIWnetwork.com.
Now, did you? There you go, boys. Bryan Moore. I tell you what, I ended up talking to him for almost 30 minutes, and I will definitely share the excitement that all 9 core schools have around moving to the network. It's been such a good experience for the CCIW, and he talked a lot about how he benchmarked against, the MIAA, the WIAC, ARC, and some of the other schools that are doing, tremendous things with it. So great conversation, and would definitely urge folks to go see the full interview as well.
Nice job.
I think it's going to give people the insight, right, on the Flow's not the only product. The WIAC network has the WIAC network. The Centennial has its own network. The PAC has its own network. And then you get into Huddle and YouTube and the kind of deal that they have where you get both of them are kind of working together to provide a non-paywall product for D3 football. Matt, what else happened other than the game that you attended? And I'm still a little salty about it, but I'll put my personal things aside. You got to go see David Soliday's fancy suite with his chef and the roast beast and all that. I know you weren't allowed to get close to the window. I wasn't even allowed in the building. He left me in the parking lot. He had a beer with me, and then, all right, be gone with you now. But tell us what else happened in the CCIW before we get to the bullies of Naperville.
Yeah, no, absolutely. No, he let me get, within about 4 feet of the window. So you could like just barely see. I couldn't even get a breath on the window, but I could at least peer in. There's a lot of gold in there, a lot of stuff as well. So, but no, real quickly, we'll run through the CCIW before we get into what the Cardinals did to my Vikings. All right, so real quickly, Carroll went up and took care of business against Elmhurst 47-7. What I thought was interesting when I was looking at the stats for the Pioneers, they had a total of 337 yards. 316 of those were rushing. So, even against Elmhurst, they didn't really pass much. 5 of 11 was all Charlie King did, but Mikey Coleman, busted off 156 and a touchdown. Reed Breckheimer, 130 yards and 3 touchdowns. So, they did some really good stuff up there defensively. They had 3 interceptions amongst 3 different folks. So again, went up, they took care of business. And, kind of moving to Carthage and Milliken. Carthage 24, Milliken 7. This is what I thought was interesting about that game. It shocked me a little bit. I mean, Carthage has a pretty good defense. They operate a little bit like an offense where they line up and play you. They don't necessarily make a ton of adjustments, for your offense, but they held Milliken to 85 total yards. So I thought that was a pretty good feat for the Firebirds, against Milliken and Silas Gomez and some other folks, Rajon Zano, they have some good athletes there. So I was surprised that it was as low of a total yard as it was. Going to the Titans took care of business against North Park 49-21. They had 435, yards of total offense. Dermot Smythe, again, Vikings get a chance to see him this Saturday here at home. We're hosting the Titans. Big Isthmus Bowl implications. But, Smythe had 237 and 4 touchdowns. Will Nazha, that's who we're going to have to key in on, 5 for 80 and a touchdown. And then Darius Whiters for North Park had a pretty good day with 11 tackles. He kind of led everybody there. Now, the game that we were following along, because Wash U led this for a while, was the Wheaton Wash U game. And, Wash U was leading heading into the 4th. And I finally checked the score at about the 2-minute mark, and Wheaton had just scored and went up 28-24 in the ultimate win. But what I thought was interesting, Wash U outgained Wheaton in total yards, so 412 to 388. And Wash U had 150 yards of rushing on the ground. So, Mark Forcucci, 282 and 4 touchdowns. So he had a great day at quarterback. And again, Seth Kortenhoven, 6 catches, 126 yards, and a pair of touchdowns. So that's really kind of across the CCIW here, but okay, David, go ahead.
Well,
I'm sorry, David. We got to cut this short. I'm so sorry. I apologize. The producer had told me that we really need to cut this short. We're long on time. So I don't know if we can cover North Central. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Well played. Well played. Very, very funny. As I was saying, it was great to meet you in person. Thanks for making the trip. It's a better trip than back when I played, because I-88 hadn't been completed until my senior year. So every time we had to make that trip, it was a lot longer. But anyway, my security detail, between you and Carlo, it's, they did the full background check, and, they just said we need to kind of keep you guys at arm's length. So sorry about that. Sure. I won't share any of the details that came to the surface as a result of those background checks. So we'll leave that for others to find on their own. But before I get to the game, I do want to just throw a quick shout out to all the I was blown away. This was the first time I was able to spend extended time before and after the game at the tailgate. And then it was also at halftime. But I had probably at least a half a dozen people come up to me and talk about this podcast. And I was kind of blown away. And they were all very complimentary, very happy that there's just more exposure for D3. So to all of my fellow misfits, no burner needed up in the nosebleeds. You should all share in those compliments. And the feedback I got was really cool. So that was neat. So getting into the game, yeah, 76-14. It was a rout, no doubt about it. North Central delivered on this. But interestingly, the scoreboard didn't really tell the story. More of the stat sheet, because tip of the cap to Augie. Augie probably had more. They had more yardage and more sustained drives than a lot of teams do. Now, granted, some of that was in the second half. The game was, more than decided at that time, but there was no quit, and so Augie's always been a tough competitor. There's really nothing that you can walk away. I mean, North Central, call them the bully, call them whatever you want, but they've elevated the program to such a high level. It's hard to compete with them. But Augie came and showed up and played. And if you look at the stat sheet and then you look at the final score, you'd be a little surprised. You really would. So where North Central has dominated everybody predominantly on the stat sheet, Augie fared much better than a lot of those teams have. But when you look at the actual game, it was just an explosion by all facets of the game, with the interceptions and the defense scoring, blocking a punt, returning it for a touchdown, a strip sack that resulted in a touchdown, a punt return that got called back, but there was a 81-yard interception return that turned into a one-play drive. All of those things combined, in addition to the offense itself, which had 7 TDs, really just overwhelmed Augie. And this was a complete team effort from everybody from start to finish. I mean, it was even to the point I noticed the special teams in the second half. That was a second team kickoff coverage team. That wasn't the regular first team coverage. So it's part of what North Central has done to kind of, on the player development side and to keep kids engaged, is they get a lot of kids on the field. And because of where the program is, and, there's a lot of big victories. If there was any doubt in this game, whether or not the first team was going to continue much into the second half, that was eliminated on the very first play. Augie had won the toss and deferred, so open in the second half, already down 55-7. Right away, the first play, Eli Renick intercepted the ball, took it back for a touchdown, and at that point, all the starters knew that their day was definitely over, and it was 2s and 3s from that point on. But it was. It was a game that it got out of control for Augie really, really quick. North Central had the vice grip on early. Augie's first 3 drives were 3 and outs, and in that point in time, North Central had scored every time, whether it was a field goal or touchdown. And speaking of field goals, Aiden Ellison kicked a 48-yard field goal in the first quarter that was going against the wind. It was pretty impressive. And then to close out the scoring in the first half, he kicked a 57-yard field goal. And it was awesome. The crowd erupted. The sidelines erupted. Coach Spencer talks about putting players in a position to succeed and having trust in them. And that was an opportunity to give Aiden the go-ahead to boot one from that distance. And he made good on it. And that was pretty cool. I think that's the longest field goal made in D3 all season. So that was really cool. But the defense, Rahimi and Nairobi, I mentioned the 81-yard interception return to the Augie 3. I think it was the Turf Monster that brought him down. But otherwise, he would have taken that one all the way in. Donovan McNeil on offense had 9 yards per carry, a TD, and was just amazing. Mentioned the special teams performance, so it was a really, really impressive performance. Garrett Wilson, 4 TDs on just 13 completions. North Central's they're outscoring opponents at a clip of, I think it's like 56-7. But the other thing that was really cool on Saturday was a moment to talk about Jeff Thorne and honor him. Before the game, he was anointed a team captain for the game, and he's in the fight of his life right now, battling stage 4 stomach cancer. And Friday night, he stood up in front of the team and he said, "I'm going to beat cancer. I'm going to keep swinging. And Dad, I'm going to refuse to lose." And if you know anything about the program, John Thorne built this, and Jeff was right there alongside with him, and refused to lose as a mantra that they instilled early, and still to this day, it's a part of the program. And, they were focused on developing men, not just players. And the Thorns influence speaks through the program day in and day out. And I had a chance to talk with Eli Rennick after the game, and he spoke about Coach Thorne addressing the team the night before the game. He said, he goes, I had a couple tears in my eyes. He said, and this is a guy new to the program this year, transferred in, but he said, I couldn't look around because I'm sure I would have just kind of lost it. I'm sure there wasn't a dry eye in the house. And just really, a tough battle that Coach is going through, and, just sending out as many prayers and positive energy as we can. But really cool, the team, the school, the program, to honor him and give him that recognition while he's in this fight of his life.
And, one other thing I learned, you want to share the Brad Spencer 3-day as a Viking story, which I didn't know. So
yeah, interestingly, I asked Eli about that too, and he said, yeah, that Coach Spence had actually shared this with the team. And I ran into his dad before, and we were talking about some things, and he's like, well, I think it all started because Brad actually, started at Augie. And I'm like, wait, what? I never heard this. And he said, yeah. He said, his physical stature wasn't much different than it is now. He's a taller, slender guy, played wide receiver. And he went to Augie, and he calls his dad after 3 days. And he chose Augie. He said, I needed to get away from home. And so his dad, he played football there, coached there, worked there before he came to North Central. And so it was kind of a natural, understood it. But evidently after 3 days, he called his dad and he said, Dad, he goes, I cannot stay here. He goes, they have me playing tight end and they do not throw the ball. And his dad said, hey, listen, you cannot make, this decision without thinking about it. You sleep on it 24 hours. Let me know what you think tomorrow. And he calls the next day and he goes, Dad, I definitely can't do this. And so the way the schedules were at the time, North Central hadn't even started camp. And so he said, Dad, I'm coming home. I want to play at North Central. So Coach Spencer was an Augustana Viking for 3-4 days.
And that was in 2002, right?
Earlier than that. It was late 90s.
Was it late 90s? Okay. That's what it was.
Yeah.
All right. Carlo.
Now, since we got the CCIW, I'm really glad you got that technical difficulty figured out. I thought we might have lost David there for a second. We can't do that to David. I see what you did there, but it's nice to have the D3 spread option crew together this week. Last week, crew was not feeling well. He was a little under the weather, so it's good to have you back. I'm just going to let you guys do your thing since that's what you do now. So let's do. And Mikey, what do you got for us? Mikey, again, camera etiquette, bro. Come on, fix that stuff.
Yeah, we the D3 spread option crew had a pretty fun week this week. We were both 500 or better against the spread, which is hard to do. And we both hit on that Rowan pick that we talked about earlier in the show, and that got me thinking before I talked WIAC that Carlo had mentioned that Salisbury was like 11 for him. Crew had mentioned in our D3 spread option show that he thought that Salisbury could be a little overrated. I think both things can be true at the same time. We're going to be waiting for that Salisbury Christopher Newport game. That's going to be the big one. But Rowan's a good team, right? And Rowan's a very under the radar type of team. So I think things can be true. That can be a really good win. And also you could look at as maybe that's not what you expect from a top 5 team, to sneak away with a 3-point win there. So yeah, Salisbury is number 9 for me this week, and I think that's Carlo's right on the money there with kind of having them there. Crew, you messaged me that maybe you had some thoughts about the top level of the 4 or 5 range of the top 25. What were your thoughts about with Salisbury there in those spots in the breakdown this week?
Yeah, I mean, like you said, man, we even talked about it on the D3 spread option show that Rowan has played these guys close last couple of years, and you either know how to defend the triple option or you don't. You either know how to hang in those kind of games or you don't, and obviously they do. It kind of cracked me up because I evidently got the attention of at least one Salisbury fan who quote tweeted the little clip of us or me saying that Salisbury might be overrated. And, obviously we took Rowan, was it 11 and a half plus 11 and a half?
12 and a
Yeah.
half.
So we took plus 12 and a half. And then I think Salisbury won by 3. And the guy said something like, something to the extent of, we won, Salisbury by 1,000 or whatever. So I guess that guy doesn't understand how point spreads work, because I never said that Salisbury wasn't going to win. I just said that Rowan would keep it close. But yeah, my biggest takeaways from, a couple of the games that we covered in the D3 spread option was, number one, man, Warburg might have the best defense in the country. These guys are. The pass rush is insane. 5 sacks against Central. They held Central to, I think it was 1.4 yards a rush, right? So they're just shutting them down, and they've done this all season. So this Warburg defense is looking more and more towards the elite category as the weeks go by. They also showed a lot more balance. Leo Dodd, 239 yards passing and a touchdown. Run game was solid. So, Wartburg's starting to show some balance. I definitely think they're a bona fide top 5 team. And then the other team that really impressed me, who I am also, they're now my second favorite team, the Wisconsin Whitewater Warhawks, because I need them to win if my team's going to have a chance to get in, right? So now, for the time being, until the postseason gets here, Whitewater's my new second favorite team. I don't think people realize how ridiculously dominant, some people do, but some people don't, how ridiculously dominant this Whitewater offensive line and run game is. We also talked about this last week on the show. Brian Stanton is averaging almost 8 yards a carry through this many games, or 7-8 games through the season, right? This has never happened in program history. It's never happened through all the Lance Leipold years and some of the most dominant run games that we've ever seen at this level. We've never seen a Whitewater running back average 8 yards a carry, which is what we're seeing right now. Brian Stanton went out and had 6.5 yards a carry again against a really good WIAC team last week again. So, Whitewater's a top 5 team for me. Wartburg is a top 5 team for me. Those two teams are, Wartburg is technically in a lot of people's top 5s, but Whitewater losing that one game to La Crosse, to me, is the difference between everyone recognizing that these guys are probably top 3 right now for me. That I've probably got them 2 or 3. So that's probably all I've got.
Yeah, and I think, speaking of that La Crosse team, if I can hit a little WIAC report here on the other teams that are not named Whitewater, that La Crosse team was in action today with another top 25 matchup. They just took it to Oshkosh, 44-13, and it wasn't even that close. This was 28-6 at halftime, and by the end of the third quarter, it was 42-6. I mean, this was just game over. La Crosse dominance, and they were so efficient on offense. Looking back and watching this game this morning, all 5 of their 6 touchdown drives, the drive length was under 3 minutes. I mean, they were just 70 yards in 2 minutes, 60 yards in 1 minute. They only had one drive that went over 4 minutes for a touchdown, and that's because it had to go 91 yards. I mean, they were just dicing these guys up, and Oshkosh is no fluke team, but they've had a couple bad weeks here, and I still think this is lacrosse's league to lose in the sense that obviously they're in the lead right now in the conference, but lacrosse is now without its faults right now. We talked about the issues they had at running back with Platteville that Josh mentioned earlier. But we're seeing the injuries start to really stack up for these WIAC teams, which is always a concern we have when you're playing this gauntlet of 6 great teams. Lacrosse's starting running back, Gabe Lynch, he's one of the very best in the conference. Carlos saw this guy play early in the year against Carnegie Mellon. Just an elite running back. He got hurt a couple weeks ago, didn't play in their loss versus Platteville. He didn't play again this week. But another thing I noticed this week was their backup, Braden Ott, who's also a pretty good running back. He would start for the majority of the country, really good number 2. He was injured this week too. So they're kind of rotating backs here, which would probably be their 3rd and 4th string to start the season. And there's no way to sugarcoat it. They're struggling on the ground. I mean, what they did to Oshkosh was all through the air. They threw for 440 yards through the air, 14 yards of completion, but they only ran for 78 yards. And they averaged less than 3 yards per carry. And I think a lot of that has to do with they're getting really thin in the backfield. And that's just something to keep an eye on because you get in the playoffs and these WIAC teams are bruised and battered. I would not want to walk into Waverly, Iowa, and play Wartburg's defense if I'm not fully healthy, because that's just it's not a winning recipe over there. But yeah, lacrosse had a really successful day, and then River Falls and Eau Claire, the game I was at, it was a really fascinating game. River Falls scored in their first 6 drives, first 6 times they had the ball, all resulted in a touchdown. But something interesting kind of happened with Caleb Blaha. I mean, he was outstanding. I mean, he played a quarter and a half. And he was 17 for 17 for 200 yards, 3 touchdowns, and another rushing touchdown. Just perfect QBR. I mean, outstanding. He kind of took some shots. He took a couple big hits, and it looked like he, maybe had a stinger or something, and he left the game. And then he never came back, and that was halfway through the second quarter. And I thought that because River Falls goes up 42-0 really quick, but then Eau Claire scores 21 unanswered in the last 5 minutes of the first half. And they go into halftime with all the momentum. 42-21, they're down. They get the ball out of half, so they have a chance to make this a 2-score game with just a ton of game left. I mean, with how fast River Falls plays, you can get double the amount of possessions against a team like River Falls than your average team because of how fast they play. So there's just a ton of game left. I'm thinking, all right, well, out of halftime, now we'll see Blaha, because he looked like he was totally fine on the sidelines. I mean, he got maybe a stinger, but didn't look like he was hurt. And he just never came back. So something just to keep an eye on. I think maybe it was a little bit of rest, if I had to guess, but it just seemed like an overly cautious standpoint to rest him. But River Falls went on in the second half, and they just rolled 31 unanswered in the second half. And a thing to keep an eye on with River Falls is they blocked 3 punts. So that big gaudy number that they put up on offense, 14 of those points were directly off of blocked punts. And White team were – they seem like they can't get the punting crew in order at all, And if I'm Josh, if I'm Mr. Goldberg, with how great he is with his QB show that he does with Coach, first question I'm asking is, Coach, what the hell? We got to figure out how to punt the damn ball. I mean, it's just you can't make excuses anymore. This is big time college football. You got to find someone that can catch it, someone that can kick it, and someone that can snap it. I mean, there's got to be someone on that team that can. With how great these two teams are next week, if Whitewater has any punting miscue on the road in River Falls, they're not winning. You just can't survive that in River Falls' house. But other than that, we saw everything else hold serve with Stout beating Stevens Point comfortably. Any more thoughts on the week, crew?
I will just round it out here with some thoughts from my own region and conference, the American Southwest Conference. Hardin-Simmons took care of business. They played an NAIA team, Nelson. They won 68-14. East Texas Baptist was off. My university, UMHB, we beat Howard Payne 41-17. Really turned it on late in a game that Howard Payne, very organized, really well coached. They've got some athletes, but just really weren't quite on the same level as our roster as far as talent, and we eventually pulled away. Big thing for us right now, I would say, is like we're starting to get healthy. Our preseason, well, I'm not sure if he was a preseason All-American. He was an All-American special teams player, kick returner at Trinity, BJ Stewart. He's back. He had a couple of weeks in concussion protocol. He's back. Probably our best transfer portal receiver that we got before the season finally has played the last 2 games. So receiving core is looking good. And both of our starting defensive ends who have been out since the Harden-Simmons game, they were finally back as well. So we're getting some key guys back that we're really going to need. We've got East Texas Baptist again this week. And then obviously the week after that is the Harden-Simmons rematch in Belton. So everything is kind of building towards that rematch against Harden-Simmons. Need Whitewater to keep winning games. If we take care of business and win out, I think we've got, last time I checked on the NPI predictions and stuff, it looks like we've got a 50% chance, maybe even better than a 50% chance if we win out and if Whitewater wins out. So definitely getting better. Just need to keep getting healthier and getting ready for the, one game at a time, I guess.
Yeah, definitely. And how about Tony calling out Union right off the top of the show? Union was my pick that I got against you, crew. The only one I got right against you. And Tony kind of said, "Hey, I don't know if they're back." Tony, this team is back. I love Union. The way they play defense, they are back, and they look really, really good. I wonder if they can find a way in the playoffs. I would love to see that.
That one really took me off guard. I'm going to be honest, but the craziest result. This is the last thing I'll say, and I know we got to keep it moving. Craziest result of the entire week for me was Muhlenberg scoring 20 unanswered in the fourth quarter to beat Carnegie Mellon. That's
Crazy.
absolutely bananas, and it's good for the Mules, right? Could not be any more brutal for the Tartans at Carnegie Mellon, because that is a team that legitimately, if they had gotten into the field, was good enough to make like a semifinal run. And I don't think we're not going to see it, because they're basically eliminated, right?
Yeah, they've really done it to themselves. I mean, they've had big leads. Imagine if they held on to that lead against Johns Hopkins and they held on to lead against Muhlenberg. You're probably talking about a team that's in the top 10 right now for sure.
Easily.
It's just a shame, and they're going to have to look inward at themselves for that one, because you can give it up to 2 teams that made that happen, but if you do that twice, it's got to be something inward.
100%, Mike.
All right. Well, I look forward to seeing what you guys have in store for us later on in the week on the D3 spread option. All proceeds benefiting QBs. Tony, lead us off, buddy. You got final thought?
Yeah, I got a couple final thoughts. I'll try to keep it brief because I know that after the 50-something minute mark, we start to lose listeners. So I'll try to go. I don't know who I pissed off in the Voices production team. I have to follow Josh and Matt, and then now I have to follow Crew and Mikey, which is definitely like that's hard to do. My final thoughts are really based on the D3 culture, right? As we get in towards kind of the final stretch of the season, if you're a high school kid, your season is probably wrapping up unless you're in the playoffs, depending on what region you're in or whatever. And kids are now looking at, recruiting, and their parents are involved and whatever. And listen, let's be honest. If you were a D1 caliber kid, you'd know it by now. A lot of kids sometimes don't embrace the D3 culture and what it could do for them. And I'm here to tell you that D3 football has done an immense service, not only to my kid, to my family, and all that is wrapped up to be. We heard at the top of the show all the people that are involved, like Josh and Matt, and all the things that go. It's really beyond just the players. It goes to the coaches, the volunteers, folks like this group of misfits, right? Like I didn't know you guys, most of you guys from a hole in the wall before the season, but let me tell you what, because the bond that we built through D3 football, any one of you guys give me a call and say, hey, I need you to come over and help me out with something, and I'm there, because that's what D3 football is about. It's the camaraderie, it's the brotherhood, it's all of that. So if you're going out there and you're trying to find a D3 spot for you to kind of land in, ask the right questions. Find a school, a program that reflects the morals, the values that you believe in, and go for it. You can't really go wrong with any of these D3 programs. I have my favorites, of course. We all know who that is. But at the end of the day, I'm a strong believer that any D3 program would steer you right. They would do the right thing. They all will really value the academics, which is a big deal. And they all will make you kind of work for it. And when you come out of there, right? And Carlo knows when you come out of there at the other end, you will be a better person for it. You will be well equipped, not only as a person, but as a professional. And the stories and the kind of values that you bring that come with you, you can't ever kind of replace those. And that's what D3 football is all about. Unless unless you're an academic, and you should be, but unless you're an academic kind of on the top end of academics, there are no scholarships, there are no shortcuts. It's just hard. Every week, these players remind us why we love the game. It's the early mornings, it's the brotherhood, it's the grind that never gets the spotlight, but always builds a character. D3 football isn't played for the fame. It's played for the pride. It's played for the passion. It's played for the people that are beside you on the left and the right. So wherever you are, keep working, keep believing, keep playing with heart, keep chopping wood. I'm Tony Maldonado, and this is Voices in the Stands. Like that?
Wow. Now you complained about having to follow up people, and that's what you throw to me. All right, well, let's see what I got. I got everybody should be worried about that kid up there in Curry, Monty Quinn. He had another big game this week. He started off a little slow. I think he finished with 4 touchdowns and just over 280 some yards rushing. He's on track for his self-set goal of 2,000 yards. Curry really on a collision course to meet Endicott for I believe the Conference in New England championship. Another big game this week, or specifically this week, a big game that's coming up other than River Falls and the Warhawks of Whitewater is Johns Hopkins traveling to Scotty Wood up there in Allentown for a battle against Muhlenberg. Muhlenberg come back from down 16 in the fourth quarter. Again, Crew and them talked about it. It's the second game in a row, or second centennial game that Carnegie Mellon looked like they were in control going midway through the fourth quarter, and it all really changed. The Northwest, I think not a lot of people are talking about. You got Whitworth, you got Linfield, you had PLU, you have Lewis and Clark. They really beat the hell out of each other yesterday. Whitworth and Linfield came out victorious, which I think puts Whitworth in control of their own fate in that conference now. And then personally, it's really good to see Gino DeMarco and the Golden Tornadoes doing what they are doing in the PAC. They have one loss. It's to Grove City. We're not going to get to see Geneva and Westminster this last 2 weeks. To Gauntlet, they got to go. They got to play they got to play W&J. They got to play Case Western. But this Geneva team could find themselves in a bowl situation. I think all of us know there's only going to be one team that comes out of the PAC and makes the playoffs, and that's probably W&J. And I don't mean probably. I mean statistically, it's W&J. That being said, I really enjoy working with the guys that we work with. There's no fluff, all business, but we have some fun. We just don't do all the fluffy stuff and the passing batons back and forth. So it was nice to see Tony kind of open up there and talk about us guys. In fact, I don't remember what the text was, Tony, but I believe I had to let you know that the wife told me if I did something, I was ending up in town, and Tony specifically said to me, "Don't you worry, the couch is real nice here." So I really enjoy.
I live right on the beach.
I enjoy working with all of you, Matt. You do a great job. Crew and Mikey will catch you guys later on in the week. Don't forget, Josh has the QB Club every Monday night, Thursday and Friday for Viking Pass. Crew and Mikey with his messed up camera are doing the D3 spread option every Wednesday. And then, I do Dingo Talk on Thursdays with the coaches. This week we will be sitting down with Coach Katz from Lake Forest. So it's been fun, Chuckleheads. We'll catch you next week.